Assalamualaikum everyone. So in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about spiral model, like what basically spiral model is, what are the features, and what are the limitation and the good, good points about the spiral model. So as the name suggests that it's a spiral model, that means that it is formed in the form of spirals, or there would be circles that would be continuing until the process is going to end. Spiral model is just like the similar models that we have studied so far in the course, the software development lifecycle models and all that. But there's a unique feature in this spiral model that distinguish it from the other models. So as you can see that we have four quadrants and we have different kind of circles that keep continuing, which are known as spiral. So you can see that we have a start, which marks the start of the process, from which we identify the objectives. Then we look into the constraints and what are the alternatives of using of that specific software that we are designing, for example. After that, we try to analyze the risk, we try to mitigate, and then we do the evaluation of the alternative that can be used. Then we try to execute and test, and then we review all the progress that has been made so far, and then we move on to the next phase. So now we are going to see a little in detail that how the spiral model works. Now, as you can see that we have four quadrants here, and we are going to start from determining the objectives, alternatives, and the constraint. So basically what we do in while we are determining the objectives, for example, you want to make an Android application that would work for an Android application that would work on a mobile or any other platform. So you can see that first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to determine the objective, like what would be the performance of that application, what would be the functionality, and what is the ability of that software to accommodate the changes that would be needed up in the upcoming stage, or the you can say that upgradation that would be required. And then we look into the constraints, that what would be the feasibility in terms of cost, in terms of time, and how user friendly that app would be. And also in the alternative, we also try to make two to three design models, so that we can see that what would be the feasibility or what features every design has. And out of those, if one fails, we can use the other one or the other design that would help us in overcoming the errors. And then in the second quadrant, we can say that it's evaluate alternatives, identify and resolve risk. Now we do all the risk analysis that is being done in this phase. We After we have identified all these things, we have done all the evaluation. Now we are going to check all the area of uncertainty, the project risk assessment. In terms of cost, we try to devise cost effective strategies that would be needed and that would minimize all the risk, and that can eliminate the source of risk that can be in the software. After the two phases are done, the third phase is about the develop, verify the next level product. Now the risk analysis is being done. Now we are going to see that how the development of the product works. Now we have, as we can see that we have concept of operations, then we have requirement validation, we have software requirements, then we perform simulation models and the benchmarks are basically the, you can say, the framework that we have to follow in order to achieve a target. So in that case it works. And as you can see that requirement validation is also necessary after you have analyzed all the requirements, function and non-functional requirements, and then we have to validate them, which requirements are actually fulfilling in this kind of particular uh, process or the software that we are developing. Second, then we have design and product design, basically the prototyping of the product that we are using. Similarly, we have to use the unit testing, the code analysis. We have different type of testing technique, white box testing, black box testing, and all that, in which we try to actually do the uh, code analysis of the code. Then after all the process is being done, uh, we move on to the next phase. After all the uh, necessary measures have been taken in order to form a proper product, and then the cycle keeps going on until unless if no if no you can say update is required in that particular product. So basically all these circles or the spirals, they depict one particular phase, and then it keeps going on until and unless once the all the development is being done, so it would end. Now moving on to the spiral model, you can see that we have already discussed all these things, that how objectives are set, that we try to undermine the functionalities and what would be designed, then the risk assessment and reduction, how to identify risk, evaluate and how to reduce it, then development and then validation just to minimize the error and all the errors that can come. Then we try to plan for the next phase which would be needed in that process. Now moving on to the breakdown, which we already discussed all these things, that we do risk analysis, we have prototyping of the model that we have to design, then design validation we try to check, planning of the next phase, alternative, that if one of the method fails or if one design fail, we can move on to the next one, and then we try to repeat, and then we also try to measure the cost that would be needed. One thing that I would like to add, that the the radius of these spiral, it shows the cost. So you can see as we are moving away from the center, the radius is increasing. That shows that the most cost is required in the later processes. So we also have to use the total cost that would be needed in each step. Now, these are some basic questions that arises, that when we are studying spiral model, that how the spiral model gets started. We all know that it starts from identifying all the objective, and once we are developing any software, we are designing a process model. Moving after that, we have how to get off the spiral model after all the as I told you, that after we have studied and we have developed the model, and if no further abbreviation is required, so the process model would end there. Then how does the spiral model ends abruptly? Since the framework or the development is done, we end the model. And what happens to the software enhancement or the maintenance? Maintenance is difficult in this, because once we have already highlighted the risk, so it's difficult to go back to that process and identify it again. So in this case, the process is little difficult of identifying the maintenance. Then we have initiating and terminating. The spiral model gets started by the hypothesis that a particular operation mission, like as I told you, that we have to first of all identify the objectives, that what objectives have to be achieved and what basic software that has to be designed. Then terminating the process, that the spiral model then involve a test of this hypothesis at any time if the hypothesis failed. For example, if you're trying to make an Android application, and the code which is being designed is not up to the mark or has a lot of faults, and after repeated step of trying to improve the code, but there are still faults and errors in the code, so the plan would automatically fail and the process model will end. So what are the cycle requirements in the spiral model? Since we know that each step is a cycle, each cycle is completed by a review by the people concerned with the project. So as after one process is ended, we try to review so that we move on to the next phase. So again, as I told you, that the plans of the next cycle should be introduced. So once the team has reviewed the first cycle, it is being passed, it is being validated, then we'll move on to the next phase. And the last, with each succession level in the spiral, the level of the details increases. Since now we are moving towards more complexity, so that tells us that the level of details would automatically increase. Now coming towards the advantages and disadvantages, estimates become more realistic as work progress, because important issues are discovered earlier. So since we are doing a risk analysis, so step by step all the errors or all the uncertainties, they are eliminated. It is more able to cope with the changes that software development generally entails. So since again we have, as we go back to the model, you can see that over here, since we have done all the software requirement analysis and the simulation, so in that case it is easier for us to cope with all the changes that need to be done. So, and then software engineers can get their hands in and start working on a project earlier. So since all the requirement is being done, they have all the details and objectives, so it is easy to work upon it. Now disadvantage is highly customized, limiting usability. Yeah. So since we say that it is highly customized, like it is specific to every process that is being done. For example, as I told you that we are making an Android application, so it is very specific. It's not generic. So that limits the reusability, that you cannot reuse the model. It might change depending upon the features of the application. Then apply differently for each application, since it might it might differ from one application to the other application depending upon the requirements, or the what are the end goals and what are the objective or the functionality of that product that has to be formed. Risk of not meeting budget or schedule, since I told you that as we move towards complexity, and the spirals of in that model increases, similarly the cost would also increase. So it is not that budget friendly if we compare to the other kind of software development lifecycle models. It needs high expertise, since we are doing a risk analysis. So we need professionals who would first of all highlight the risk, then they would take the mitigation techniques to evaluate that risk, and then we have to see that how the risk has to be eliminated. So this was all from the spiral model. If you have any query, you are free to ask. Thank you.